In the quiet corners of early 19th century Tennessee, a story was born, not of flesh and blood, but of whispers and shadows. It's the tale of the Bell family and a presence that would forever etch their name into the annals of American folklore. But what if this story wasn't just about the haunting? What if, at its heart, it was a story of a love so powerful it transcended the veil between life and death? Let's journey back to the Adams, Tennessee homestead and uncover the spirit in the shadows. Our story begins in 1817 on the sprawling farm of John Bell. Life was as it should be, hard work under the Tennessee sun, the comfort of family by the fire at night. But then, things began to change. It started subtly. Strange sounds echoed through the log cabin when no one was there, soft knocking on the walls, the faint sound of a dogfight just outside, only for them to find nothing but silent fields. The children, especially young Betsy Bell, would complain of their blankets being pulled from their beds by an unseen hand. At first, John Bell dismissed it as simple tricks of the wind or the overactive imaginations of his children. He was a practical man, a respected elder in his community. He urged his family to keep these strange occurrences a secret, fearing ridicule. But secrets have a way of growing, and this one was growing into something they could no longer ignore. The gentle knocks soon gave way to more disturbing sounds. The scratching on the wooden walls intensified, sounding like a rat gnawing desperately to get in. The family would hear the smacking of lips, as if an invisible guest were feasting at their table. They heard faint, choked whispers, too quiet to make out the words, but clear enough to send a chill down their spines. The activities seemed to center on Betsy. She would be slapped and pinched by an invisible force, her hair pulled until she cried out in pain and confusion. The unseen entity was making its presence known, and its intentions felt anything but friendly. John Bell could no longer keep this terror contained within his family. He confided in his closest friend and neighbor, James Johnston. One night, Johnston stayed with the Bells to witness the phenomena for himself. He was a skeptic, but what he experienced that night turned him into a believer. The blankets were ripped from his bed, and he was subjected to the same invisible torment as the Bell family. The secret was out. The haunting of the Bell family was real. Word spread like wildfire. People from all over the region came to the Bell farm, hoping to witness the strange events for themselves. The spirit, which now identified itself as Kate, after a local woman many believed was a witch, seemed to relish the attention. It would speak, sing hymns, and even carry on conversations with visitors. Its voice could be a faint whisper one moment and a deafening roar the next. Kate claimed she was there for a purpose, to torment John Bell and to prevent the marriage of his daughter Betsy to a young man named Joshua Gardner. Kate's reasoning was vague, her threats dire. She swore she would never let them be together. But was this malice, or was it something else entirely? Was it the fury of a spurned entity, or the desperate plea of a heart that refused to be forgotten? This is where our story takes a turn, where we look past the horror and search for the heart. Among the many who visited the Bell farm was a young man, a teacher and a scholar, who was deeply fascinated by the supernatural events. Let's call him Richard. Unlike the others who came seeking thrills or proof of the devil, Richard came with an open mind and a quiet curiosity. He spent weeks at the homestead, documenting every strange sound, every whispered word, while others recoiled in fear from the spirit. Richard tried to understand it. He felt a different energy from the presence, something beyond the torment and the tricks. He felt a profound sadness. Each night, as the house fell silent, Richard would sit alone in the main room, a single candle flickering beside him. And it was in these quiet moments that he felt her. Not the vengeful Kate that tormented the bells, but a different presence altogether. It was a gentle chill in the air, a soft sigh that seemed to brush past his ear. He began speaking to her, not with the confrontational questions of others, but with gentle inquiries about her past, her life, and her pain. He asked her not what she wanted, but who she was, and in the deep of the Tennessee night, she began to answer, through faint whispers that only he seemed patient enough to hear. A new story emerged. She told him of a life lived long before the bells ever settled this land. She was a young woman, a native of this soil, and she had been in love. Her love was a settler, a man who, like Richard, was gentle and curious. Their love was a secret, a forbidden bond between two worlds that were not meant to mix. They met in the shadows of the forest, by the banks of the Red River, their love a silent song against the backdrop of a changing world. But their time was cut short. He was called away, promising to return, but he never did. She waited, her heart aching with a longing that time could not heal. She eventually passed from the world, her spirit bound to the land where she had known both her greatest joy and her deepest sorrow. She was not Kate, the witch. She was a spirit of loss, a soul tethered by a love that was never resolved. Richard came to understand that the haunting of the bells was not an act of pure evil. It was the lashing out of a broken heart. The loud noises, the physical torment, it was a desperate, primal scream for attention. The only way a formless spirit knew how to make her profound grief felt in the physical world. Her obsession with stopping Betsy Bell's marriage to Joshua Gardner wasn't about hating Betsy. It was about preventing another heart from experiencing the pain of a promised love that might be broken. The spirit saw a reflection of her own tragic story in the young couple, and she reacted with the only tools she had, fear and intimidation. The spirit wasn't trying to destroy a new love. She was trying to protect Betsy from the same fate she had suffered. Night after night, Richard sat and listened. He felt her presence wrap around him, not with the cold grip of fear, but with a palpable sense of longing. He was the first person in over a century to see past the monster and recognize the woman. He didn't fear her. He pitied her. He spoke to her of his own life, of the world that had changed so much since her time. He read her poetry, his voice a steady comfort in the darkness. A strange and beautiful bond formed between the living man and the long-dead spirit. He was not her lost love, but he became her confidant, a kindred soul who could finally hear her story. The violent outbursts at the Bell Farm began to lessen on the nights Richard was there. The entity's energy, once focused on terror, was now drawn to the quiet understanding offered by this one man. Through a series of whispers and chills, the spirit gave Richard a warning. She showed him visions, not of horror, but of sorrow. She warned that if Betsy married Joshua, he would not be true to her. She imparted a sense of inevitable heartbreak, the same heartbreak that had chained her to this land. It was a desperate plea from one woman to another, passed through the veil by a man who had the compassion to listen. Richard relayed this message to the Bell family, not as a threat from a demon, but as a sorrowful warning from a lost soul. The Bells, exhausted and terrified, took the warning to heart. The engagement between Betsy and Joshua was eventually broken, and just as the spirit had fixated on preventing it, once it was over, her focus began to fade. The haunting didn't end overnight, but its nature changed. The violent, aggressive Kate persona receded, and what remained was a melancholy presence, a lingering sadness on the land. The spirit's desperate mission was complete. She had in her own fractured way, saved another from her fate. Richard eventually left the Bell farm, his research complete, but he was a changed man. He carried the story of the spirit not as a terrifying ghost story, but as a tragic romance. The bond they had formed was a testament to the idea that communication, even with the unseen, is possible when rooted in empathy rather than fear. He felt her presence no more, believing that in finally being heard, a part of her soul had found peace. The Bell Witch legend is remembered for its terror, but perhaps its true legacy is the story that was hidden within it. The story of awe, forbidden love, a timeless grief, and the profound connection between a living man and the spirit in the shadows. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of America's greatest ghost stories. If you enjoyed this different perspective on the legend, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was the Bell Witch an evil entity or a heartbroken spirit? Until next time, stay curious,